and I'm sure people will join
Okay,
during the
whatever it
share.
is. Okay, so good morning, everybody. And we're learning now the laws of Rambam. The law in Rambam, the laws of Shchita. And today we're up to chapter 4. And we've studied the 5 factors that are required in order for meat to be kosher. I'm sure you picked all of that up already in our previous classes. And today we learn about the significance of the big 5. And he says as follows, Yisrael she'eni, Perek Aleph Halacha Daled, Yisrael she'eni yediach mishat dvarim. A Jew doesn't know the 5 factors that disqualify ritual slaughter and the like concerning the laws of Shchita that we explained. And if he slaughters the animal in private, in other words, not being watched by a proper sheichet, it is forbidden for him and others to partake of the animal that he slaughtered. The meat's not kosher. It is close to being considered an avela because of the doubt involved. When a person eats an olive-sized portion of its meat, he is worthy of stripes for his rebellious conduct. In other words, although it's not biblically forbidden meat because possibly he did it correctly, he says, no, but I did it correctly. If he doesn't know the laws perfectly, his meat cannot be considered kosher. Base. Even if such a person slaughtered animals properly in our presence 4 or 5 times, and the slaughter which he performed in private appears to be a proper and complete slaughter, so it seems like he knows how to make the cut, excuse the pun, it is forbidden to partake of it, since he does not know the factors that can disqualify ritual slaughter. It is possible that it will cause the slaughter to be disqualified unknowingly. For example, he may wait, apply pressure to the animal's neck and slit it. So he may not do one slice, or he may push upward instead of moving backwards and forwards, or he may actually slit the neck. He may slaughter with the blemish knife or the like inadvertently. Therefore, he cannot be relied on. Then he continues, Gimel. Even when a Jew knows the laws of ritual slaughter, he shouldn't slaughter in private as an initial preferred option until he slaughters in the presence of a wise man many times, until he is familiar and ardent. If, however, at the outset he slaughtered in private, okay, so then the slaughter is acceptable. Once he is proficient in the laws, he shouldn't do it, but if he did it, the animal is kosher. Now, I'm sure Kent knows from his involvement in the UOS, where we're busy training up a sheichet. There are many, many months involved in learning the laws, watching the laws, but in practicing. And the first good few animals that a fully knowledgeable sheichet will slaughter are not kosher until he is clear that he knows how to do it. When one knows the laws of ritual slaughter and slaughters in the presence of a wise man until he becomes familiar with ritual slaughter, then he is called a mumcha. Any expert may slaughter in private as an initial preferred option, and even women and servants may slaughter as an initial and preferred option. That's fine. Hey, when a deaf mute, or an intellectually or emotionally imbalanced person, or a child, or a drunkard whose mind has become befuddled slaughters, the shchita is unacceptable since they do not have adequate mental control. We fear that they blundered, and therefore if they slaughter in the presence of a knowledgeable person, and he saw that they slaughtered properly, then their slaughter is acceptable. When a person whose reputation has not been established among the slaughterers in private, we question him, and if it's discovered that he knows the fundamental principles of ritual slaughter, his slaughter is acceptable. So then it's okay. Zion. When we saw from a distance that a Jew slaughtered an animal and departed, and we didn't know whether or not he knows the laws of ritual slaughter or not, the animal is permitted. Okay, so we see a Jew coming and shechting an animal, and the Jew leaves. Or similarly, if a person tells his agent, go out and slaughter an animal on my behalf, and he finds a slaughtered animal, doesn't know whether his agent or another person slaughtered it. Okay? So he tells his local butcher, go kill this animal for me. And then he goes out and he sees in his yard that the animals lying to slaughter. The animals permitted, and the rationale for both these laws is that the majority of people who slaughter are expert. Okay? So if there is reasonable cause to assume that it was done properly, then you can consume it. Ches of it, like the tarnagal, following was a point when a person loses a kid or a chicken. If he finds it slaughtered at home, it is permitted. The rationale is that the majority of the people who slaughter are experts. So if he finds it in his home, he can assume that the sheikhet came and shechted it, which was common at the time. If you find it in the marketplace, however, it's forbidden. If you find your animal there, why? Because perhaps it was slaughtered improperly, became unavailable, was therefore cast into the marketplace. And similarly, if you find it on the waste dump at home, it is forbidden. But if the sheikhet normally comes and shechts for you, and 1 week you sleep in late and you see the animals there, and your usual weekly chicken is slaughtered, you can assume that it was done. Yes, when an expert slaughterer loses his power of speech, but he's still capable of understanding, he can hear and he is of sound mind, he may slaughter as an initial and preferred option. Similarly, a person who does not hear also may slaughter as a preferred option. A blind man, however, should not slaughter as an initial and preferred option unless others supervise him. And if he slaughters, his slaughter is acceptable. Okay, because we go with the assumption that the laws can all be fulfilled, all the conditions can be met, and therefore it's considered kosher. Yud Aleph, Akum Sheshachat, when a Gentile slaughters, even though he slaughters in the presence of a Jew, using a finely honed knife, even if he was a minor, the slaughter is an avela. And according to a scriptural law, one is liable for lashes for taking out. Only a yid can be a sheikhet, as it says, lest he shall call you and you shall partake of his slaughter. Okay, therefore, this is in Parshas Kisisa, after the story of the golden calf, and the Torah is giving us the prohibitions around intermarriage and other things. It tells us this. Since the Torah warns lest one partake of his slaughter, you can infer that slaughter is forbidden. And he cannot be compared to a Jew who doesn't know even the laws of ritual slaughter. Yud Beis, our sages established a great safeguard concerning this matter, decreeing that even an animal slaughtered by a Gentile who does not serve false deities is a nevela. Okay, so any animal served by a non-Jew is considered a nevela. Question? Any questions? Yud Gimel. Hischil ha'akum. If a Gentile began to slaughter and slit the minority of the signs. Okay, now if you remember, one of the laws that we learned earlier in the halachas about shchita is that for a behemoth, for example, you have to slit the majority of both the food pipe and the windpipe, the kana and the veshet. Right? Let's say the Gentile slit the minority of the signs, and a Jew completed the slaughter, or a Jew began the slaughter and a Gentile completed it. It is invalid. The rationale is that the slaughter is considered an integral act, a single continuity from the beginning to end. If, however, a Gentile split a portion of an organ that doesn't cause the animal to be considered an avela, in other words, he split half the windpipe and a Jew completed the slaughter, then it is acceptable. Okay. Now, what about somebody who is not fully observant in one area? So he says as follows. A Jew is an apostate because of his transgression of a particular transgression. Okay, he's known that he has one area where he's not observant as he should be. Who is an expert slaughterer may slaughter as an initial and preferred option. However, a Jew of acceptable repute must check the knife and afterwards give it to his apostate to slaughter with it. But it can be presumed that he will not trouble himself to check the knife. Obviously, today, when a sheikhet has to check many animals and the mashgiach can't check every time, therefore it doesn't work. Then he says even further, if by contrast he was an apostate, in other words, because of his worship of false deities, or because he is someone who violates the Shabbos in public, or he is a heretic, denies the Torah and the prophecy of Moshe, our teacher, as explained in the Shuvah, he's considered as a Gentile, an animal he slaughters as an available, in other words, 100% prohibited. Hesvav, Mishu Pasal Aveda, even though a person is disqualified as a witness because of his violation of scriptural provision, he can still slaughter in private if he was an expert. For he would not leave something which is permitted and partake of something that is forbidden. And this is a presumption that applies with regards to all Jews, even those who are wicked. Okay. That's an interesting clarification. Now he says, what about the Sadducees or the Bethudians, right, who were different sects that had broken away from the Jewish people? Their disciples and all that err following their path who do not believe in the oral law, their slaughter is forbidden. If however they slaughtered an animal in our presence, it is permitted, for their slaughter is only forbidden because it is possible they blunder. Since we do not believe in the laws of ritual slaughter, we do not accept their word when they say we did not blunder. In other words, if you don't believe in the law, we don't accept that you followed it. However, they are considered close enough that if they slaughtered in our presence, it's not like, for example, when a non-Jew slaughters, that the meat is automatically non-kosher. Excuse me. When the Jewish people were journeying through the desert, they were not commanded to slaughter non-sacrificial animals. Instead, they would cut off their heads or slaughter them and eat as the other nations do. In the desert, once they were there already, they were commanded that everyone who desires to slaughter an animal in the prescribed way should slaughter only for the sake of a peace offering. As the verse states, when a man in the house of Israel will slaughter an ox and will bring it to the tent of meeting, so that the children of Israel bring their sacrifices and slaughter these sacrifices as peace offering. If, however, a person desired to cut an animal's head and partake of the animal in the desert, this was allowed. Now, this, just to point out, this approach is a very famous machlekes in the Gemara between two of one of the great pairs, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, as to when did the Jewish people start keeping the laws of Shchita. Was it at the beginning of their time in the desert or towards the end? What everyone accepts is that by the time they were coming into the land of Israel, this changed. This mitzvah is not observed in the desert forever, nor in the desert alone. At the time, it was permitted to kill animals and partake of them, because there they were commanded that when they would enter Eretz Yisrael, killing animals for food would be forbidden, and ordinary animals could only be eaten after ritual slaughter. You can't just kill an animal anymore. At this point, they were given the mitzvahs of shchita, and they would be allowed to slaughter in every place except the temple courtyard. As Deuteronomy states, when God, your Lord, will expand your boundaries, and you shall slaughter from your cattle and your sheep, which God, your Lord, gave you. And this is the mitzvah to be observed for generations. To slaughter and then to eat, that is how we observe the mitzvah today. Any questions?
Not so far.
Well, it's a very short, easy set of halachot, so good luck.
Rabbi, is that a picture of 770 behind you?
It is. You see me in that picture.
Yes, 17th from the left.
You notice you can see the beard and the hat. You can.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I was there for. Do you know Moshe Miller, Rabbi Moshe Miller?
No.
He's in Chicago now. We were at his wedding there, 1982.
Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
Rabbi.
beautiful-
Thanks, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, Shabbat.